Hello and welcome everyone back to another Tea with Mel series. Today we are live and we are going to be talking all about plant hormones today because there seems to be some discrepancies around this and some people have completely cut out every possible plant hormone they can find. There's sort of this extreme mindset, as there is with most things. More must be better. But as you will discover with most things, whether it's diets, supplements, foods, whatever it isn't always about more. It is more often about balance. And so it's the case with plant hormones. Before we get stuck into today, I have my tea for today. So this is Tulsi, lemon, and ginger. Don't know if you can see that. And I know some of you really like to know the brands of things. So that is Organic India. I don't know if you can find that everywhere, but that is the brand name. It is something that I discovered through my neighbor. She has this all the time, and it is just a lovely tea because it's got a little bit of a kick to it because of the ginger. So it has got, I will read to you, it has got ginger, tulsi, two different types of tulsi, lemongrass, and Rama tulsi, and some lemon flavor. So it's very, very nice. There is my cuppa there for you. I hope you enjoy it and join me today for some tea. Maybe you can have some tea while you're watching this with me. I don't know if you have a ginger tea at all, but perhaps you could have some with me. A little bit of background on some of these. So if we look at ginger, we have got a little bit of background on this. So it's actually originates from Southeastern Asia. What I like about ginger is it's really warming on the body. So, this is particularly helpful if you have the tendency towards feeling the cold. It's really good for that. It helps with fat digestion and encourages basically the movement of food through the digestive system, increases bile, which helps with that fat breakdown. It's also really good so it's very nourishing and helps regulate blood sugar levels. So really nice for that. Now, Tulsi, I couldn't actually find in my fabulous herbal book that I normally check things. And Tulsi goes by different names. So it also goes by the name Holy Basil. The one that really was exciting to me about Tulsi is that it protects the organs and tissues against chemical stress from industrial pollutants, heavy metals, and physical stress from prolonged physical exertion. So you can imagine that, when you are struggling with endometriosis, that is a lot of things that are quite common. There is a correlation with endometriosis and pollutants, particularly dioxin is the main one. I have done a lot of research on this, and heavy metals also play a part because they interfere with the absorption of nutrients because the heavy metals essentially block that absorption. So very cool tea, and specifically because we've got 3 different types of Tulsi in this tea. So really nice to have. Okay, so if you have questions, if there's anything that is unclear at any point during this time, I know this is quite a big topic, so feel free to pop your questions in the comments. If you are live with me, would love to hear from you. If there's something that I haven't covered that you'd like me to cover, please send your inquiry to support@endoempowered.com. And then we can have a look as to whether it would be a good topic for one of our YouTube lives. This one was actually a request by somebody, so hopefully it resonates with a lot of you. Okay, so let's get stuck into the phytoestrogens. Just going to pop over to my screen. Just make sure this is on. We're going to do this on the iPad because it is a lot easier for me to demonstrate things with you. So just give me a seckie. Doesn't want to open up now. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that. And there we go. So we are on the screen. Hopefully you guys can see that. That is my screen for drawing because I like to draw. It's a lot easier to explain things. Okay, so what exactly are phytoestrogens and how is this relevant to endometriosis? Okay, so the first thing to know is phytoestrogens are plant mimicking plants that mimic estrogen. Okay, so basically plants have an action that is similar to estrogens, the natural estrogens found in the body. And the idea behind this is that the plants essentially can replace the high estrogens in the body. So let me just explain this really simply. So if we have a kind of weak plant estrogen, a normal estrogen, and then these are called xenoestrogens. These are kind of essentially they're the toxic type of estrogens. So they're from plastics can act like estrogens. They're also from synthetic hormones. So the pill or being on any kind of hormone treatments will have this action. And essentially these guys are like, super strong. So if we were to rank them out of 10, they would be like way up there in terms of their action on the cells themselves. So the action in the body is heightened. Estrogens will have a normal action. So that's kind of where we ideally want to be, is kind of this normal range. And then you've got your plant estrogens, which have a weak action on the body. Now, the thinking here is that essentially these guys can replace these guys, and thereby we can get to a normal estrogen level. That's the thinking. Now, in a typical scenario, you would have a cell and you would have basically it's kind of like parking lots where things come into. So the estrogens come into here, they sit in here, and then that creates a reaction within the cell. And the thinking is that currently there are these xenoestrogens sitting here, and we're going to kick these guys out and we're going to replace them with the weak ones. And thereby we're going to create more of a natural hormone balance. Okay, so progesterone, estrogen, that's sort of ideally your natural hormone balance. But here's a few caveats with that. Okay, so initially this does help women. And so a lot of the studies that have been done on these kinds of plant hormones will show an improvement on hormone balance. They will show an improvement with endometriosis symptoms. Because if you do this, then yes, you will have the scenario happen. The plant estrogens move in here, they kick out the xenoestrogens, but this generally has an effect for roughly 3 to 6 months. Okay. The problem is if you maintain that, so if you keep taking these plant estrogens for a longer period of time, eventually you're just going to create more parking lots and then there's going to be more action on the body. But also, what's actually more important is that these xenoestrogens are now in the bloodstream and they need to get out of the body. So you've got these xenoestrogens all floating about in the body and they are not getting excreted very well. Okay, so they should be excreted, and there's a couple of processes that need to happen. The liver needs to identify them as xenoestrogens that need to go out of the body. Then, if it succeeds in that, it goes through to the digestive system to get rid of them, because that's how the stuff gets out of the body. Now, if this digestive system is not working very well, guess what happens? It just gets reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. And so then you have all of these guys plus all of the plant hormones. And so you don't actually resolve that imbalance that's happening. Okay, so that imbalance that's happening is essentially there's too much estrogen and not enough progesterone. And this elevated estrogen creates a lot of the symptoms associated with endometriosis. So this is where a lot of the heavy periods come from, because essentially what's happening is the uterus lining is getting thicker because there's more estrogen. So elevated estrogen, thicker uterine lining, heavier periods. Okay. You're also going to have heightened levels of inflammation. So this relates more to the other cells, so not the uterus lining, but actually the dispersed cells. You're going to elevate inflammation. And the reason for that is that estrogen itself actually activates the mast cells that relate to inflammation. So that elevated estrogen is triggering these mast cells, and that is then triggering the inflammatory response, which is things that you're familiar with: pain, underbelly, adhesions, all the things associated with having endometriosis. So the question is, should we be thinking about this differently? Because elevated estrogen is actually just one part of the equation. Because here's where it gets interesting. Because elevated inflammation is also a trigger for elevated estrogen. So this is where it gets really interesting, because it isn't just a hormone-based condition. And though we've been told this over and over again, and the treatments have been told over and over again that it's a hormone-based condition, and so the treatments have always focused on that. But in reality, it's not always as simple as that. Okay. So looking back at our plant hormones, so looking back at our phytoestrogens, what exactly am I talking about? Which ones am I referring to? Okay, so there's some that are herbal based. So you get herbs that are recommended specifically to use in this format. The most common one is red clover. I'm just going to get my book out because there's some really cool research studies on that. Where is it? Okay, so phytoestrogens, meaning plant estrogens, activate these estrogen receptor sites. Okay, and so red clover is the most common one, but this is where it's kind of where the topic gets a little bit convoluted and a bit confusing. It also includes isoflavones. Okay, so isoflavones are essentially the things that you get from soy products, you get from lentils and flax seeds. Okay. Now, this is what I really want to relay to you today, is these are not bad foods. It's not about completely avoiding them. It's not about freaking out about them. It's about recognizing their influence on your hormone balance and really seeing what happens with that. I personally found after some research that soy products, if they are fermented correctly, they don't have that heightened reaction as is indicated by a lot of the research. So if you have fermented, so like things like tofu, is actually, and once again, don't have it every day. It's about having it in moderation. It's not about going all out with these things. This is the key thing. People get this idea and then they have it every single day, and then they wonder why they create more imbalances. Everything is about moderation and balance, okay? The one that I personally really do avoid is, however, flax seeds. It has a very heightened reaction. It's got quite a high load in terms of plant hormone base, so it's got quite a high reaction. And this is the thing that I guess one really needs to look at, okay? That the other one is black cohosh. So this one also shown to have a very high estrogen modulating ability. So black cohosh is another herb. I'll just write this down for you here. Black cohosh also has, so it's red clover. They tend to do these two, black cohosh. Okay. Hops from beer is another one. Now, hops are sometimes used in sleeping capsules, so that's something to think about. If you're struggling with sleep and you're taking something for your sleep, then hops may be in there. So if you're taking that every single day, that may be something to consider. Now, basically what they're saying is that these soy isoflavonoids can lead to endometrial hyperplasia, which basically means too much. So, hyper means high levels. Okay, so the endometrial lining becomes thicker because of that. So it's not something that we necessarily want. It's not something that we want to encourage. Okay. But what I found particularly interesting, okay, so I'm just going to jump to the bit, is that they're basically saying that they don't agree with this approach, which is something that I pretty much came to the same conclusion, is that it's not actually a treatment. What we really need to be looking at is, what is the reason for that estrogen dominance? What is the reason for that hormone imbalance? Okay. And so this is really the question that we should be asking ourselves, is why is there this scenario of too much estrogen and not enough progesterone? And as I already lightened to earlier, a lot of that is actually got to do with inflammation itself. So these guys have a loop. Elevated estrogen triggers heightened inflammation triggers elevated estrogen. So it's one of those chicken or the egg scenarios. But what I prefer to do is work on all of them. So look at three key areas when we address endometriosis: hormone imbalance, then we look at inflammation, and there is definitely an immune component here. So these are the three areas that I look at. And when we do that, you see, there's a big thing here, is while we're sorting out this, we're actually sorting out this, we're sorting out the reason. So if the immune system is wonky, it'll create an inflammatory response. If there is heightened inflammation, it creates hormone imbalance. So there are lots of reasons why you may experience heightened inflammation. There are lots of reasons why you may experience a wonky immune system. So just focusing on hormone imbalance is not really looking at the full picture of what's going on, because you're over here trying to correct this imbalance, but actually there's a whole lot of inflammatory things going on in the body. Maybe there's, parasites, worms, there's gut imbalances, there's allergies, there's things that are triggering some kind of inflammatory response. And so no matter what you do to try and fix the hormone imbalance, if you're not fixing the inflammation, well, you're not going to be able to fix the hormone imbalance correctly. Does that make sense to you guys? I hope this is more clear, because I think there's such a heavy focus on hormones with endometriosis. And I know that's through years and years of, doctors and naturopaths being taught that. But really, things are changing. This is really my recommendation for any naturopaths out there. This is really the book that's going to give you the insights in terms of endometriosis specifically. It's basically saying it potentially could exaggerate the symptoms of estrogen-dependent disorders and render their use inappropriate in high doses in conditions such as endometriosis. Okay, so it's basically saying it is not an estrogen issue. And that's really the key message that I guess I wanted to do with this today, is that this isn't about just hormones. This isn't about just elevated estrogen. And to shift your focus out of that. Yes, of course, I understand that there is hormone imbalance is part of the picture, but I really encourage you to look a little bit deeper and look at why that could be. What are the factors that could be contributing to why you have that? And look beyond just, oh, I have PMS and sore breasts and my hormones are all over the place. But why? Why is that happening? Okay. I have done another video on this. So if you want to get more insight on that, do check that out. It really comes down to looking at your liver health and looking at how you can support your liver to better detoxify. As I mentioned earlier, it comes down to this excretion process. How well is your liver detoxifying those excess hormones, and how good is your digestion at actually getting rid of them? Because without those, you are literally just going to be reabsorbing, and all that work you're trying to do in trying to balance your hormones is not going to be effective. Okay, so I'm going to open up and see if anyone has any questions. Just can you guys still hear me? I don't know if something turned off by mistake. Okay, I'm back. I don't know what happened there. Has anyone got any questions on that? Anything that you'd like more clarification on, or anything I could elaborate on more? Are you guys in a situation where you have got hormone imbalances, you're not sure what to do? Maybe you're on the pill and you're thinking about coming off the pill and you don't know, well, where does that leave you? Feel free to ask me any questions as I have my Tulsi ginger lemon tea. Anyone got any questions? there is so much information about hormones and hormone imbalance now, and it's cool. I'm glad that there is that much information, but it's also very easy to get distracted by that because we do feel that and we do notice that, and it's sort of a more, I guess, clear picture in terms of symptoms, but and also maybe because your doctor has recommended hormone treatments, we think that that's what we need to be focusing on. I did that for many, many years. I decided, okay, I'm going to get off the pill. And so I'm just going to use a plant-based hormone treatment instead. And so I experimented with a lot of plant-based hormones. And in the end, it didn't actually resolve anything because I wasn't treating the trigger. I wasn't treating the underlying factors of what was going on. So, yeah. Okay. Anyone got any questions? No? Okay. So that is really the crux of what is happening with plant hormones. Now, the reason there is perhaps some arguments or disparity between different people and naturopaths and health practitioners, etc., is because the studies indicate that they can be helpful with endometriosis specifically. My theory is that they are helpful for a period of time. So I believe that they can help for maybe 3 to 6 months. But then if you continue to take them, you're actually creating more imbalances. So ideally, what you want to do is work with a naturopath, make sure that you work with somebody who understands how this all works, and maybe you do take it for 3 to 6 months, but in the background, you need to be looking at supporting your liver, supporting the digestive system, making sure that you're working on all the other components that are related to having endometriosis and not just the hormone side. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but we have got a brand new course. It's very cool. It explains all of this in a lot more detail, and I'm just going to share it with you because it's a very fun, free course that you can do. It takes 30 minutes, so it's not like it's a major course, because sometimes when you say the word course, people think it's going to be huge. It is not a huge course. Let me just share my screen with you. Where am I doing this star? Da, 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 da. Share. No, it doesn't work. Okay, I'll just put the thing up on the comments for you. So this is the free course, and it is very fun. It teaches you essentially the principles, the three key principles of endometriosis that I focus on and how that is relevant. It's very fun. It's interactive, so you get to click on things and things happen. It's very cool. And it gives you those insights and research backing as to where we get all this from. I'm a qualified naturopath. I have been studying nothing but endometriosis for over 10 years, and it came out of my own journey. So I struggled for many, many years. I did 15 years of really struggling, had 7 surgeries, and didn't feel that that was working for me at all. I went on the pill, I went on all sorts of different hormone treatments in the hope that that could somehow make my life easier. And it didn't really. I didn't feel better. I felt worse. I was not myself. I was quite grumpy a lot of the time because the hormone treatments have an effect on how you are as a person. It affects your personality. And I mean, there's studies coming out now showing that being on the pill changes your perception of who you pick as a partner, you know, so you can see that it would have got an effect on you as a person. And I decided that that wasn't good enough and decided to do things differently. And I'm sure that for a lot of you, you're in a similar boat where you just decided that it's not good enough and you want a better alternative, something that's going to help you, that's going to actually get to the bottom of having endometriosis and what's going on for your body and really support your body, rather than just using methods that just cover up the symptoms or, you know, just suppress things until later. But then inevitably you have to deal with it at some point. You know, I find a lot of women who go and they take these treatments and then they want to have kids and then they have to deal with it at that point. And it's a lot harder to deal with because now you've got time pressure, you know, where women are stressing, where they're worried about running out of time, because they've spent so much of their time just basically pushing it under the rug, you know, hoping it'll go away. And unfortunately, you know, it's time lost. It's time lost where you could have been supporting your body. You could have been correcting the reasons for those imbalances. So, yeah, that's pretty much, I think that's all I'm going to share with you today on plant estrogens. If there is something that I have touched on that you want more information on, if you are worried about them, just let me know what your thoughts are so that I can clarify anything. If you found this helpful, that would be nice to know too. Feel free to click the like button because then YouTube will rank my videos more. And if you guys want other topics covered in these Tea with Mel series, do let me know that as well. If you've watched them and some of them are just far too complicated or you feel like that some of it doesn't make sense, feel free to let me know, you know, what you'd like clarification on. Holly has got a question. Okay. Hi, Holly. Nice to see you. What are my thoughts on seed cycling? Yeah, I think seed cycling can certainly have a better effect, like if you sort of really doing it properly. And I think properly to me is actually where you're taking measurements, you know, you're taking the temperature measurements every single day. So you actually know where exactly you are in your cycle, what your estrogens and progesterones are doing. You're more in tune with your hormones. So if you're doing that, but I don't know, I'm not huge proponent of actually playing with hormones that much. I think that if, you know, like, I don't know, if you found a benefit in using it, because that would be an indication whether that's beneficial for you. Have you noticed a difference in when you've done it and when you haven't? Like, really? Not just theoretically. Because, you know, a lot of this is also marketing and it's cool to give things marketing names. So just being mindful of that as well. Yeah, there is certainly a correlation with your cycle and honoring that. And so to me, I look at it more broadly as to how can we honor our cycle. So things like recognizing at the beginning, you have more energy. That's the time to build things. That's the time to you rejuvenate, you create, you make things at that time. And then as you go through the months, as you're nearing your monthly, you actually slow down and you honor that, you know, so you recognize that now it's time to look inward. Now's the time for reflection and applying that on some level to your life, to your work, where possible. I mean, obviously, we don't all have that opportunity in the same way. So, yeah, so Holly says she's thought about it after. Okay. Yeah, if you're coming off the pill, I would be really looking at some kind of protocol to get yourself off the pill. I wouldn't just go off the pill cold turkey. One of the key reasons is that when you're on the pill, it's basically putting synthetic hormones into your body, and it's suppressing the natural balance of your own hormones, so your natural hormones. Now, when you come off the pill, it's much easier for estrogen to build up, but progesterone takes a lot longer to build up. And so often what happens with women when they come off the pill is that estrogen can really shoot up. And so a lot of the symptoms that you had with endo, maybe they've suppressed a little bit with being on the pill, they become really heightened. And so then women go, oh, no, 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 I can't not be on the pill. I need to go back on the pill. This isn't working for me. It's definitely helped my endo, etc. But actually what's happened is that extreme hormone imbalance has occurred, and so heightened estrogen, heightened inflammation, heightened pain, etc. As we kind of talked about this earlier, so if you want to watch it again, you can see at the beginning, Holly. But basically, you want to avoid that scenario, and that's really making sure that you're looking at supporting you're looking at your diet, how you're eating, to really ensure that your liver and your digestive system are working optimally. So when you do come off the pill, it can excrete that excess estrogen very, very easily and without, the strain of that. And to also support your body in building up progesterone. So making sure that you have the nutrients, and once again, you get this from your diet, making sure you're getting that so that you can support the body's natural ability to build up progesterone better, so you don't have that extreme reaction when you come off the pill. Because, it can be you can have that reaction, not always, but a lot of the time I've seen that happen. And then women go, well, I can't not be on the pill. I have to be on the pill, So depending obviously on your life situation. So maybe you want to have kids and then it's not really an option. But I do recommend some kind of protocol to follow prior to getting off the pill so that your body is ready and you are ready, and you can then maintain that during that time. It might be helpful to take some kind of herbal remedy during that adjustment. So one of the ones is Vitex, which is frequently recommended. It's also called chasteberry. Once again, I do not recommend this without having your hormones checked, without seeing what's going on. Particularly if you're tracking your cycle, that can be really, really helpful. Once you come off the pill, to actually track your cycle to see, oh, okay, interesting. I'm actually not really ovulating yet, or whatever. Vitex can just help to get your cycle back. It can help just get those hormones back into a normal routine. But I do not recommend taking it long term again with endometriosis. I probably only recommend it for about 3 months. And then, wean yourself off it and get something to support the liver, get something to support making sure your digestive system's working. And that, once again, comes back to diet and really supporting yourself, nourishing yourself. So not just eliminating a whole lot of foods, which is unfortunately what's been the key focus with like the endo diet's all about, just cutting out a whole lot of stuff. We don't want to be doing that. We really want to be focusing on nourishing the body. How can we replenish the body? So that is very much our approach. So yeah. Okay. Another question here. So hi, Vanessa. Thanks for sharing your question. Any tips for becoming pregnant with endo with regards to phytoestrogens? I don't know if they necessarily need to stick together. That's okay. Thanks, Holly. So getting pregnant, it doesn't need to be correlated to the phytoestrogen. So I'm not sure where that thinking is coming from. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, on how you've come to that kind of question. I'm not quite sure I'm following your thought process there. Getting pregnant with endo is really about preparing the body to hold a child. And that is quite a big conversation. We have already done a Tea with Mel on fertility, so that may be one that you want to check out, Vanessa, because it's much more in depth. But essentially, it's creating a home for baby, and that home needs to have lots of good quality, nourishing nutrients in it, needs to have minimal toxins in it, and not need to be a stressful environment. It needs to have a home that baby wants to move into. And so a lot of time women are very stressed around being able to have kids with endo, which totally understandable. But we want to come into a space where we can believe that it's possible, and we need to trust that it's possible. So I hope that that makes sense. Okay, so Vanessa's asking, can phytoestrogens really help to become pregnant, or are some of them detrimental? So it's not as simple as that. I kind of wish it was, but it's not as simple as that. Phytoestrogens are really, if I don't know if you watched the beginning, but really phytoestrogens, the goal there was intended to just to try and create some kind of hormone balance. And if there is an imbalance, then yes, you may not be ovulating, you may not be therefore able to get pregnant. So if there is hormone imbalance that is part of that picture, that's where they may be using phytoestrogens, or maybe you've worked with somebody, I'm not sure, but that once again would not be my focus. I would not use phytoestrogens for you to get pregnant as a method. It's a part of a bigger picture of looking at what is going on with your hormones specifically. Are you not ovulating? In which case, can we use herbs to rectify that? They're not necessarily phytoestrogens, though. There are a huge range of herbs that can help your body rebalance hormones, and they don't necessarily need to be phytoestrogens. So I hope that makes sense. I don't want to give them a bad name because, they certainly are helpful in certain situations. They are very helpful when you are going through menopause or perimenopause. They can be very helpful during that time because the estrogen is actually dropping off in the body, and we want more of it to alleviate some of the symptoms associated with perimenopause or menopause. So in that scenario, they can be beneficial. But it's not as simple as a chicken and it's not as simple as just take this to equal that. I hope that makes sense, Vanessa, because sometimes we think, oh, I'll just take some herbal supplements and then I'll get pregnant. Unfortunately, it's not as simple as that. It's really about looking at what else is going on in the body, how are you supporting the body, and particularly looking at your hormones and coming back to really educating yourself on how to track your cycles. So actually doing tracking, seeing what your temperature is indicating in terms of your cycles, and are you ovulating? If you're ovulating early or late, what else is going on? There's lots of things that are part of that picture. Things like sleep, things like, poor liver toxicity, getting rid of toxins from the liver. All these things contribute to an ability to get pregnant or not. I will tell you that we have an amazing success rate with women getting pregnant with endo, even when they've been told it's not possible. So know that it is a bigger picture, and there's, creating a home for baby, and that's really it. So if you watch that YouTube live that I did, I think it was about, I can't remember the date now, but I'll pop it in here for you afterwards, and then you can check it out and see, the insights on that. But it's quite a different way of looking at it. I think we're still very much in the mindset of take a pill to create a solution, and that isn't really what holistic healing is about. Holistic healing is looking at everything in your entire body, your brain, your gut, your liver, your kidneys, your thoughts, your environment, everything plays a part in your health. And it's not there isn't one magic ticket. And I wish there was. I wish I could tell you that, yes, you just eat this and everything's good, or you just take this and everything's good. I wish it was, because that would be a lot easier for me. But it's not. There's lots of factors and there's lots of things that play a part. And so, sometimes women say to me, "Oh, but I followed the Indo diet and I didn't feel better." It's like, yes, but are you really stressed? Or are you just eliminating? And is your focus all about elimination? So cutting out more and more foods. Or are you, is your body potentially riddled with toxins? Maybe you have parasites, or you have worms, or you have other things going on that are therefore inhibiting the absorption of the nutrients from your foods. So um, it really isn't as sort of simplistic as I think a lot of the information out there may indicate. So I hope that helps, guys. I don't want to overwhelm you. My goal is not to overwhelm you, but my goal is to really educate you and to give you a more in-depth, realistic picture of how to treat endo successfully and not be in a position where you're taking things incorrectly with false ideas. Because unfortunately, we all have access to things now. We can just take whatever. But it's actually sometimes dangerous to do that, when you don't know what's going on. And it can be this scenario with taking plant-based hormones. I mean, I know I experimented with them and I got severe anxiety from some of them, because obviously my hormones were not out of balance. And my thinking was I could take these to try and correct them, but actually the imbalance was more to do with my liver health rather than the hormones themselves. And so you just got to be mindful that they do have an effect. Just because they're plant-based doesn't mean they don't have an effect, or they're weak, or they're not as strong, or whatever. Just be mindful they do have an effect, and to really be thinking about something before you take it, and tracking things and checking things and getting things tested before you take anything. Ideally work with somebody, because that way you know where you're at. So I hope that helps. Okay, well, thanks, guys. Is there any other questions that you guys have? Is there anything you would like me to cover in terms of topics for like next week or week after, or whatever? If there's anything that you guys want me to cover, feel free to let me know. And yeah, this is really, this whole Tea with Mel series is all about just being there for you, to help you understand endometriosis, help you understand, how the body really works and what's really going on with endometriosis. Because there is unfortunately a lot of wrong information out there, and it's just getting more prevalent because people don't have the training, they don't have the education, they are working off scenarios of maybe it happened to them and then they went, oh, I'm going to have this super strict diet, and then they follow that diet and they did feel better. But then what's happening is they're encouraging people around the world to follow an extreme diet protocol, but it isn't necessarily something that we all need at that time, or we're just not absorbing that. So there's more going on, or most cases it's far too restrictive. You're not getting enough of the nutrition that you need from many of these diets that are out there. So yeah, I'm just going to share this again with you guys if you missed it. So this is our brand new free course. It's so much fun. It's literally 30 minutes. It'll take you 30 minutes. And it's just the most awesome thing. You can click on things and things happen, and it's really explains endometriosis for you, as in the three components that we really look at beyond hormone balance. And so if you check that out, it's a lot of fun, and it'll really give you the insights to appreciate more about endometriosis and not just look at it as a hormone based condition, because it is so much more than that. It is so much more um, interesting than that, to be honest. I found it more interesting than just hormone based condition because, yeah, there is more going on. So, anyone got any final questions before we clock off today? Anyone? No? Okay, this will be live on YouTube shortly. So if you missed the beginning, feel free to come back to it. I will be sending out an email to anyone that's on my list to also get that. So you can check that out when I send it through. Thanks, guys, for being here. And if you have any questions or you feel like you couldn't ask in a sort of more public forum, feel free to email me at support@endoempower.com. And I look forward to helping you and improving your life, and so you can be endo free. So you don't have to worry about endo anymore. All right. Talk to you next week. Bye.